Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another brand new Mattel Jurassic World Dominion release to take a look at. We've got another massive action figure, and as you can see, we have the Siamosaurus, and this is a very cool species of dinosaur, one that I do not have in my collection at all, and one that I was really excited to actually enter into my collection, especially being such a unique take on the species here by Mattel. Mattel has been very good at coming up with some really cool, very obscure species as of late to make. This is definitely one of them, and honestly, again, it's a pretty creative and quite interesting take on this dinosaur. But as you can see, as far as the box art goes, it's pretty much your standard as far as the Jurassic World Dominion line goes. You've got the Jurassic World Dominion logo there, as well as a nice image there of Rexy in the background. And then you can see here on the back, you have an image of the Siamosaurus as well as the Ankylosaurus down there, which is the other massive action figure out currently. So let's go ahead, pop this out of the box and check it out. And here is our Siamosaurus, and it's really quite nice, honestly. It's definitely a pretty cool figure. I'm not a huge fan of such like a sharp turn here in the tail, but that's not really that big of a deal. Again, we unfortunately have the mouth open where you have to push the button to kind of close the mouth. I'm not a huge fan of that. That was definitely one of my complaints long ago when it comes to the Mattel figures. Sad to see that's still something that is occurring to this date, but it definitely looks like a very cool, very crocodilian-like appearance for this dinosaur. And being a relative of Spinosaurus, you can see it looks very different than the Mattel version of the Spinosaurus. We also have this dinosaur in more of a quadrupedal stance, which is very cool as well. But let's go ahead, jump straight to a closer look at this right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Siamosaurus, you can see some really nice looking skin texture, some beautiful scale detail here included in the face. You've also got some osteoderms poking up here and there. You can see a little cluster of them down there under the eye. You can also see another little cluster up here on the tip of the snout. You can also see some nice coloration to the faces. We have a reddish tone of color for the top part of the head, and then a nice lighter tone here for the lower jaw, which looks really cool. And you can really see how vibrant the scale detail is. I think even more so in the lighter tone area here, the lower jaw. That scale detail is absolutely beautiful. We have some very interesting looking teeth for our dinosaur that really run pretty far back here. You can definitely see that they're kind of spaced out. Again, giving it that more crocodilian type of a look. Not perfectly painted, I will also say that. You can see that there's a little bit of sloppiness here and there, but like specifically the teeth back here, you can see partially have that reddish tone of the face. Same deal, I believe, over here. Yeah, you can absolutely see that again back here. You can definitely see some of the sloppiness to the paintwork of the teeth. And I do apologize again if you hear some banging and stuff, as I do have some nephews and stuff over while I'm trying to get this review done. But you can also see again that the detailing here of the tongue and everything looks really nice. You got some beautiful texturing to the tongue. Very nice realistic tone of color that does actually run here on the inside of the mouth to the upper jaw. And we have a nice glossy look in there as well, recreating that nice saliva-like look. You've also got yellow eyes with a nice black pupil, almost again a slit-like, kind of crocodilian-like black pupil right there, which looks pretty cool. Some nice looking detailing up here on the top of the head, and you can see as we lead back here into the neck, we transition to kind of like a very dark gray or a very dark blue. It's almost hard to establish exactly what color that is, but you can also see that we start to kind of form a slight sail right here as you lead back into the neck region. You can also see that this dinosaur has that same look that we see on a lot of more recent Mattel figures where we have kind of like random splotchy paint on it. You can see this one has more of like a whitish kind of a splotchy paint to it. Sometimes we've seen this before, like on the Giganotosaurus was one that was definitely a memorable one as far as this kind of splotchy paint. I think it looks okay on this one. Definitely interesting, not terrible. Adds a little extra color through the course of the figure. You can see some really nice scale detail again as we transition back here into the neck and into that darker tone. You can also see that we have some really big kind of like osteoderms or like ridges picking up here and there through the entire figure. You can also see them running down here in the lower part of the throat. Pretty smooth transition to that lighter tone there of the throat. A little bit of like hanging skin or something right there. You can also see a little more here on the lower jaw. Very nice, very appealing looking coloration here for the underside. I wish it would have continued because you can see it very abruptly stops right there as we reach the chest, unfortunately. And then moving a little bit further back into the body, you can again see that we just have like this very kind of ridge-like look, or like osteoderm-like look all over the place. They're just like randomly popping up all over. Definitely like two ridges right here, which is obviously where the DNA scan code would be hiding. See if we can pop that out. I don't even know how we go about pulling it out this time. There we go. You can now see the Jurassic Facts app code if you would like to add that to your collection on there. But again, as you lead down into the arm here of our Siamosaurus, you can see very, very reptilian-like scaling as you lead down the arm. Again, very crocodilian-like. You can also see some ridges kind of leading off of the back of the arm and then down into that hand sculpt. You can see that we've got 4 digits here on the hand, and what's interesting about this dinosaur, the last I knew anyway, now this may be different because I have not really studied up on Siamosaurus in quite some time, but I feel like the last time I'd really read up on it, the only thing that I really knew that we had from this dinosaur were teeth. I don't think that we really have much of the body, if at all, so I guess they're just making some sort of like a artist's interpretation here with the hand and the amount of digits and everything we have on it. Same deal for the feet, because we have 4 toes, which just looks super weird. I would definitely not expect it to have 4 toes like that. So this is just another instance, I think, of Mattel kind of taking some creative liberties with the figure. But that's definitely not my favorite aspect to this figure. Again, it's furthering that more crocodilian type of a look for this dinosaur. It almost looks like they maybe went ahead and kind of attempted to create a Siamosaurus and used maybe like a lot of crocodile DNA for this one, because as a whole, the entire figure has a strong crocodilian type of a look. Now, again, there is a lot about this species that I am not familiar with. It's not one that I've ever really read too much up on, and don't really know too well, so there may be a lot of inaccuracies with this figure that I'm not going to catch. So if you happen to notice anything, again, that, oh, well, again, it's a Mattel figure, we can't really expect accuracy, but there may be some stuff that I don't mention because I am not entirely, again, familiar with this species. But as you check out the arm here, you can see some nice muscle definition and everything here in the arm. Beautiful looking detailing here in the stomach region. Really, really nice looking scale detail there. And again, kind of just like littered with osteoderms and stuff throughout. As you lead back up here to the top of the dinosaur, we do have a sail here. You can see it's painted with a nice reddish tone. Some pretty nice looking fine detail in the sail area. You can also see some of this darker tone kind of stripes up a little bit. Not too much, only 3 little areas there. Would have been nice to see a little bit more than that, but it still looks okay, I guess. As you lead down here into the thigh, you again have some nice muscle definition, some really, really large scales there. Again, super crocodilian-like scales as you move down the course of the rear leg here. Nice calf muscle as well. Incredibly large, very impressively sized, kind of like scoots running down the leg here. And again, we do have articulation in the ankle, which is nice to see, but you can again see that very odd looking foot with the 4 toes on it, no painted nails. They kind of look like they have a little bit of a glossy look, but you can also see that we continue to have that kind of splotchy coloration through more of it up here as well. And then as we lead out here into the tail of our dinosaur, of our Siamosaurus, you can again see that we continue to have that same similar style of scale detail as we had seen through the majority of the figure. We have a little bit of a slight sail up here on the top, as well as one here on the underside, giving this an incredibly aquatic look. And again, a nice curve to the tail, a little bit of a sharp curve out here, which I'm not super huge on, but it still doesn't look too bad. The tail's definitely too small. There's no doubt about that. But again, if we don't really know too much about the dinosaur in general, I guess maybe you could again just make your best assumption as to how that looks. But yet again, you can see from this side, it looks pretty much the same. No real big differences or anything that I'm noticing over here, and that's a good thing because you wouldn't really want it to look too different over here compared to what we saw on the initial side. You can see that the right leg is trailing a little bit, whereas the left leg is leading, but they're almost in like the same position, the same way that they are sitting here on the animal. The front legs are almost in the exact same position, maybe slightly off, but definitely a really cool looking figure. Super, super unique, that's for sure, but I really don't think it is our best, most scientifically accurate interpretation of a Siamosaurus. This one I'm definitely just going to chalk up to Mattel taking some major creative liberties with this figure, because this one is, again, kind of out there as far as its appearance goes, but I can't dare deny that it is a really cool looking figure, no doubt about that. As far as articulation goes on our Siamosaurus, you have the jaw articulation. You also have an area of neck articulation right here, as well as right here. So you've got two areas of articulation for the figure. You also have the arm articulation forward and back, a little jerky, but it still works. You can also go out away from the body. You have the rear leg articulation, which is way smoother than the arm articulation forward and back. And yes, definitely out away from the body a little bit. And then you have the tail articulation, which can go all over the place, but that's also partially because of the action feature, which you could probably see the head juking and jiving as I was doing that. And that's because, again, you have a button here to push to make the jaws snap. And then you control the head and neck area with the tail. So you can kind of have the dinosaur just go all over the place, attack pretty much everything and anything. And again, control the way that the head moves. Pretty cool. Again, that's kind of your standard massive action feature. As far as a size goes, for a length, you were looking at about the 14, I would actually say just shy of about 14.5 inches, or around 36.5, closing in at 37 centimeters. And the highest point, without question, is the sail. You were looking at about the, I'd say about 5.25 inches, or around 13.5 centimeters for a size comparison. There is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our massive action Siamosaurus, and you can definitely see that the figure sports a pretty darn impressive size, pretty much right there in the size range you would expect for being a massive action figure, and definitely, again, you can see pretty big there next to Muldoon, who's about to meet his demise there by those massive jaws. Then we have our massive action Siamosaurus next to Bumpy, the Roarivore, or Roar Attack, I forget what version it was, but Roar Attack style Ankylosaurus, and you can definitely see that that armor is going to hold up pretty well when it comes to the attack of the Siamosaurus, but you can also see that, again, our Siamosaurus is really quite large next to that Ankylosaurus. And then as far as massive action figures go, we've got our Yankshuanosaurus now next to the Siamosaurus, and you can definitely see that they are fairly similar in size, though obviously one is in a quadrupedal pose, one is in a bipedal pose, but definitely two very sizable figures with actually very similar looking skin texture and kind of a similar looking body type, which is actually interesting that I didn't pick up on prior, but still very close in size. And then we have two more Mattel figures, as we have the Extreme Damage Velociraptor, as well as a Dilophosaurus here next to our Siamosaurus, again stepping in here for another comparison. We've also got ourselves the Kenner Young Rex here for yet another comparison, just trying to think of a few figures that you guys might have that would probably make pretty good stand-ins here next to this figure. And then the final two that we're going to bring in are just two figures that are not Mattel related, as we have the Safari LTDU Tyrannus and the standard version of the Dino Kyrus from Collect Day here next to our very interesting looking Mattel Siamosaurus. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Dominion Massive Action Siamosaurus is a very cool figure, but again, I don't know that it's probably what the animal looked like. I would think that the actual appearance to the animal would look quite a bit different than what we see here from this Mattel version, but that's just based off of what I know. Again, as far as I can recall, the only actual surefire fossil remains that we have of this species, I thought were just like teeth, and I don't think we had much of the body, if at all. So I would imagine the large majority of this figure would probably just, again, be kind of like an artist's interpretation from Mattel, and I'm going to definitely go on record as saying they must have used some sort of a crocodilian here to kind of fill in some of the DNA gaps, because this has a major crocodilian-like appearance to it. Even though it's not exactly what I would picture Siamosaurus looking like, I still think it's a really cool looking, very unique looking figure. In fact, it may be one of the most unique looking figures that Mattel has created so far, because the sculpt looks really cool. It's got a pretty fun paint job, definitely not the best paint job, but it kind of appears as though it has color from head to tail, because you have that kind of splotchy white color through it, and you have the darker tones. I would have loved to have seen that kind of sail-like area on the underside, almost like a fin-like area on the underside of the tail, had some sort of a paint job to it other than just that darkish tone, but we also don't really have nail paint. You know, we have that pretty much standard Mattel coloration, but as a whole, the sculpt is really highly detailed, incredibly crisp, very vibrant detail, really cool paint job for the most part, not perfect, not amazing, but still decent. It's just a little bit of a weird looking take again for a Siamosaurus, but as a whole, it's a fairly fun figure. It also has some pretty cool articulation on top of everything, and pretty much the exact action feature you would expect to have on this type of a dinosaur. I would have loved to have seen the jaw closed and you push the button and the jaw opens, but it is what it is. Can't have everything we want, I guess. Still a pretty interesting figure, so if you are interested in picking this up, I will include a link in the description to where you can purchase this on Amazon.com, as that's where I ordered mine, so make sure you check that link, head on over there, grab yourself this very interesting figure, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.